Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Build Your Fort with Lentheus Chaney. I'm your host, Lentheus Chaney, and today I have an amazing guest with us today. He is like a photographer extraordinaire, Mr. Mike D, aka Mike D Shot Me. And if you have been looking at any of my promo work for this podcast, all the pictures that you're seeing, Mike D Shot Me. What's going on, Mike?
Not too much, man. How are you?
Doing excellent, man. I totally appreciate you. Good to see you. It's been too long. I mean, I haven't seen you since the shoot. What we gonna do?
You need to book another one. Or
you know what? Season 2, I'm gonna book another shoot, and so I can have a fresh set of photos for season 2. So
I'll be ready. But the beautiful thing is, we got so much good work in on that you probably don't need to come back for a while. Honestly, if you got photos that you still being able to rock with, then that means I did my job.
You did an excellent job because I was able to use those same photos across several mediums. You know, for my real estate work, for my Airbnb work, and now for the podcast. Just switched a few things out, and everything that you did made it worthwhile for me to book you, and I'm definitely still going to book again, especially when I did my 50th birthday. That was like, those photos were amazing.
Because at the end of the day, it's about personal branding, and you are representing and bringing your best self to the table, representing the essence of who you are. And so whether it's real estate, whether it's podcasts or anything else in between, like, it's still you. And that's just the beauty of having an authentic personality and authentic brand.
Most definitely. So thank you, because I know you are a busy guy, and I appreciate you taking the time. I know you just got through the shoot, you just got in, but you took the time to sit and talk with me today and share some of your knowledge to my listeners, and hopefully some new listeners for you, because I know you got lots of things going on. So
absolutely. I call it blessed, not busy.
I know that's right. People's like booked and busy, but you're blessed and busy. And that's what it's really all about. So tell me about you and your jump from full-time work into a self-made man, entrepreneur, full-time photographer. Tell me a little about that. When did you know it was time for you to jump? And first of all, what were you doing before you jumped?
All right. So I'll start with that question. Before I jumped, I was in marketing. My background is in marketing. That's what I got my degree in. And I was one of those people that like saw all my friends graduate with like criminal justice degrees and then go work at a pet store, or like a journalism degree and then become a police officer. So for me, I was just like, I am going to commit to making sure that I got a degree in my field. So I worked at an agency for a couple years. Then I moved over into corporate. I worked at Popeyes in their marketing department for a while. But I always was very intentional about the direction my career took. And marketing kind of was where I decided to play. And I intentionally chose marketing because every company needs marketing. So whether I wanted to be working at a record label or I wanted to sell cheese, I could do that with a marketing degree, because at the time that I was in college, I didn't really know where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. But it was a blessing in disguise going into marketing, because it put me in a position where I was able to get a lot of exposure in just the creative industry as a whole, and to see the need for photography and also understand how it's used from a business perspective, which has helped me tremendously in my business now, because I'm able to work with entrepreneurs who are coming to me for photography because they need to market a product or a service. And I'm able to kind of act as a strategic partner from a marketing perspective to say, this is what you need. This is how we need to shoot, and really be able to just give them the best value possible. I loved what I did, but I didn't always love the people I did it with. Working in corporate America is very challenging for a lot of different reasons. But I think it got exacerbated, and I started getting restless after a couple years of being in the industry, working different jobs, working myself to the bone, but never really getting completely passionate about it. I cared about me delivering the best quality work in whatever I was doing. So I was always giving 100%. I was always staying late working, and I would get promoted. I would get new jobs. I was getting scouted or recruited for different jobs, but I was just never happy. And I think that was when I started getting that twitch to say, okay, something has to give. And I vividly remember for years riding to work, listening to Gary Vee talking about quitting your job and following your passion and not caring about what your parents thought. And I think the more I heard that as a possibility, because I think growing up, we're just taught, go to school so you can get a good job, pay bills and die. Like, not in those words, but that's essentially what it felt like to me. And I just knew that life had to be more than that. And I think social media has been a great tool because it's given us so much exposure to what other people are doing and just seeing what the possibilities are and that there's other options out there besides taking the traditional corporate route. And so once I realized it was possibility, I knew that it was something I had to do because I kept trying to force passion into my jobs and it just wasn't there no matter what. And so I was like, I've got to find a way out. And at the time, I didn't really know how. I hadn't even really picked up a camera at this time. I actually started off doing relationship coaching. I had a full business. I had built the website. I was in marketing, so I could erect a business in no time. And I had started there, and eventually realizing like I ended up needing photos to promote my business, and I reached out to photographers, and it was just like I couldn't bring myself to pay what at the time I just didn't have the money to pay. And I was like, I'd rather figure it out myself. I'm a very do-it-yourself person. Like, even to the degree, Thai is my favorite type of food. Like, I love Thai food. If I go to a restaurant too many times and I realize that I'm repeatedly going to this restaurant, I'm going to go home and figure out how to make Thai food. Like, that's just always been my mentality. Like, if there's something that I love that I repeatedly spend my money on, I need to find how to automate it or do it myself. And so it was the same thing with Thai food. It was the same thing with, body butters, all these different things that I just did to find a way to make it happen on my own. Like, I don't like to depend on anybody else for anything. So I bought a camera. I started practicing with it, taking pictures of my wife. Other people saw it. A friend of ours asked us to do headshots for her. She was like, I'm going to a conference. I need a new headshot. Can you do it for me? And I was like, I mean, if you buy the backdrop, I'll take the picture. And that was the deal we made. And then after that, she paid me. And I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. I should do this again. And it just kind of snowballed from there to where we are today.
Wow. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about what were your fears when you decided that, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to quit my job. Everybody's got fears along that way.
Mm-hmm.
What were your fears?
To be honest with you, I remember being at a place where I was more scared of staying the same than I was worried about what would happen if I made a change.
Wow.
And I think that was like the turning point for me was like, I knew that, like I said, I had some good jobs. I was making good money, but I wasn't happy. So I was more fearful of not taking the jump. And that was kind of like your why has to be bigger than your why not. And I think I just got to a point where that was the case for me. Of course, you worry about the simple things like, well, not the simple things, but the normal things like, oh, what are my parents going to think? But also, I just didn't care what my parents thought because I knew I needed to do this for me. And when I'm at home stressed out, or if I'm dealing with something at work and I call my parents and tell them they're not going to come save me. So I've got to take care of myself and do what's right for me. That was just the decision that I made. Wow. I remember like when I first changed my Instagram over to a photographer Instagram page, I was worried about what people were going to think. I was just like, is he actually going to do this? And is he for real? And is he actually any good? And at the time I probably wasn't, but I was like, you had to start somewhere. And I think everybody sucks at a certain point. But I vividly remember like the anxiety that I felt when the first time I posted a picture, like, hey, I took this photo, and it wasn't of me, because everything on my page before that was just sports and my wife or whatever. So, but again, it was just like, I just got to a point where I didn't care. And as far as transitioning to full time, I think the pandemic helped a lot, because nobody cared about your work history when they knew everybody had lost their jobs due to COVID. Right. And I think that was the safety blanket for me, that I was like, if I do have to, well, first of all, I was like, I'm staying at home. I'm not spending much money on gas. All these other things were happening. And I was just like, even if I make $50,000 doing photography, I'll be happier than making $100,000 doing something I don't want to do, and doing it with people I didn't want to do it with anymore. So I think that for me was the biggest thing, was just like, I knew that when I woke up in the morning, I wanted to wake up excited about what I was going to get to do that day instead of what I had to do. And that was the decision that I had to make for me in order for that to be a reality.
That's deep, man. That is so true. I love everything you said, especially the part about not really caring what other people thought, but you had a bit of worry, I'm changing my Instagram over and people wondering. And I get that, but I just had a recent conversation with a friend and I was telling my friend, look, just do it. You're going to get better at it as you do it. Don't try to perfect it right now.
Just start.
Do it. And when the next one comes a time for you to do it again, do it better than the last time. Evaluate what you did before and then do it better next.
I heard a quote recently. I think it said something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, 5 years ago, you're not going to care how hard it was, but you'll care that you started. And it's just like, I'm at that mark now where 5 years ago, when I picked up a camera, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was just inspired to try something new and to, explore and just see what I could come up with. And I'm like imagining if I decided, I'm not going to spend that couple $100s on my first little cheap camera, or if I had never paid for that course to go and learn more about how to edit and retouch, or all the decisions that I made up until this point that led me to this. Like, I didn't see the end at the beginning, but it was just in that moment, what did I want to do? That was it. And I just made that decision and didn't complicate things. And every step of the way, it's just like constantly improving. So I'm at a great place now, but now it's like, okay, what's next? What's the next step? What do I have to do to continuously move forward and build on what I've done up until this point? Because I think that's a big part of ultimately, I think, what was missing in my job. It's like, I may have made a little bit more money here and there and things like that, but it was like, I'm still doing the same thing, working for somebody that I don't respect and having to like force myself to kind of appeal to them for my livelihood. Like, it just didn't make sense to me, especially, like I said, once COVID hit, they were like, okay, we're cutting your salaries, but we want you to work harder so the company can do better. And I'm like, so work harder for less money and still hope that eventually I'll have a job after all this is said and done. It's like, I'd rather like work hard for myself. And I think that's what happened. I said, all right, I'm going to open up my calendar for more photography gigs. And it was in no time, my calendar filled up where I had sessions every day for 2 weeks straight. And I was working for a company at the time who they professed unlimited PTO. And so when I went and told them, hey, I need 2 weeks off, and I got pushback, that was like the tipping point, or, the straw that broke the camel's back, where I said, you know what, I'm going to go get this money and take this opportunity that like can change my life. And that's exactly what happened. And haven't looked back since.
And you shouldn't. So on the real, what did your wife say? What was her reaction? What was your family's reaction?
So I'll start with my mom. She was confused, but optimistic. My dad was confused and pessimistic. And I think to this day, it still blows his mind when I call it, like, cause I've never called and asked him for money. And when I tell him what I'm doing, things that I've accomplished, people I've met, things that I've done, he's just like blown away. So when it first happened, he was like, you're quitting your job to take pictures? What? And like, now he's like, my son is an entrepreneur. He works for himself. He takes his own, and it was like, it's fun now on the back end of it, but he didn't understand it at the beginning. And I'm saying that intentionally. He just didn't understand. Because he grew up in a generation that just, there was different expectations. And he's just like, I don't get it. Like, y'all, you just built different. That's what he told me. And I was like, you're right. I am. And I'm going to show you exactly what I'm built like. My mom, she was just like, okay, like she knew me well enough to know that I wasn't going to make a stupid decision. And she knew that I honored my wife and respected my family enough to like not put us in jeopardy. So she was just like, all right, do your thing. Like, I wish you the best. And that's kind of what that was. And I sweetened the pot for my wife because I told her she could quit her job too. And so with that, she was like, oh, I'm all in. Like, if I don't have to do anything and you saying you want me to stay at home, you're going to go out and make all the money and we're going to live a better life than we ever did before. I'll take a bet on that. And so we literally quit our jobs on the same day. And I said, I don't need anything from you. Just take care of the house. Take care of the dog, take care of yourself, and I'll take care of us. And like I said, at this point, year to date, I've already made both of our salaries. So it's just like, it was definitely the right gamble for sure. Betting on yourself is always the right gamble because you have the control, you have the power to make it happen.
That is something that I'm hearing constantly throughout. Each time I do a podcast with someone who's jumped or they're about ready to jump or jumped a long time ago, they're saying the same thing. And I get it. You got to bet on yourself. This hashtag bet on yourself. I think I'm going to put that in the hashtag today.
Got to, man.
Bet on yourself, because you hit the nail on the head there. And that's what I'm hearing. That's that common thread that I'm seeing coming through with each entrepreneur that I talk to.
Yeah. And I would say, to take it a step further, betting on yourself is important because you have the control of the outcome. But that control comes from not quitting. Like, the only way to ensure success is to not quit, whether it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. If you don't quit, you still have a chance at success. And I think, like, that's what so many people miss, is they try something once, and if it doesn't, like, if they're not an overnight success, then they feel like they failed. I mean, I actually, believe it or not, tried to go, well, no, I got fired from my job, and I was like, okay, I'll just be a full-time photographer now. But I wasn't ready, and I didn't commit to it the way that I needed to in order to make it happen. So I ended up, like I said, getting fired, not trying to look for another job, working part-time, trying to do photography on the side, and eventually being like, I can't take it. And I went back, got another full-time job. And then this time I was like, if I'm going to do it, I got to go all in. And that was when the shift happened. So it's like, so many people think that there are external factors that impact their success, and it's really internal. Like, I just had to make a decision. Like, all right, am I gonna go all in, give it 110%, or not? Because if not, I need to stay at this job and to collect this semi-reliable paycheck.
Semi-reliable. That's so very true. Because you never know when they're going to say,
Yeah, until they don't need you anymore. Yeah. And I think that's what the pandemic showed a lot of people. And so being awake to that, I think, set a lot of people up. And honestly, that was a big thing for me. Like, people ask, okay, well, how did your business either grow or decline within COVID? And it honestly shot up because when I paid attention to the market, I saw what was going on, and I saw, okay, people are losing their jobs left and right. What are they going to do after that? If they had a dream, if they had an idea for a business, they're going to start it now. What's one of the first things that people need when they are starting a business? They need content. They need social content. They need website content. And those people come to me, and I specialize and focus in branding photography. So it's just like a no-brainer that if somebody has a dream, if they have a business, they don't get only a photographer, they get a marketer to help them not only learn how to not only get the photos, but understand how to use it and even what they need in the first place. Like, so many people come to me, I'm starting this business, but that's all I know. Help me. And I'm like, okay, well, let's sit down, talk about your goals, talk about your marketing strategy. Let's talk about your target audience, and figure out, okay, what do you exactly need and how do you need to implement it? What do we need to do to make sure that your website is optimized to, get you the type of results? I literally will sit on the call with clients and break down their website and top to bottom and give them a whole feedback. And I don't redesign it, but I tell them how to. And that's just an overflow of my previous life as a marketer, but also just me caring about people and being passionate about putting people in a position to succeed and to live out their dreams and do something that means something, to carry out a passion or a purpose. Because again, I just don't believe that we're just here to work a job, pay bills, and die. But so many people die with potential inside of them, with that business, with that idea, with that, accomplishment, that achievement, because for whatever reason, they feel like life kind of just squeezes the life out of those dreams. But it's just like, if there's anything I can do to help somebody to experience what I have, then I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen.
And you're leading me into my next question. And my next question is, when you hear the phrase, do what you're passionate about, how would you explain to someone who has no clue what their passion is? How do you explain that to them? Because I know you have people that probably come to you that want to do something. They don't really know what it is, and they don't know what they're passionate about. How would you explain that to someone who didn't know what their passion was?
Okay, I got this one. There's 3 primary questions that I lead with. Number 1, what do you do well naturally? Like, what do you feel like comes easy to you, that's simple to you, that like you feel like you don't have to necessarily work super hard to do? Like, if there's something that people tell you, oh, you're really good at this, or you should do this. Because I have had people come to me and say, oh, like, because now they're like, oh, this is totally your bag. Like, you're so in your purpose, and people can see the passion that comes out of you when you're doing that thing. Number two, what would you do for free that you can find that somebody would pay you for? And then the third question would be, I just slipped my mind. So yeah, what do you do that you do better than anybody else? What are you passionate about? And then what's most important to you? Like, what do you value? I feel like everybody is born with an innate like passion for something that means something to them. I've heard the phrase, the why that makes you cry. I feel like there's people out there who just, there's something that you are keenly aware of that other people may overlook. And for me, like, there's aesthetic. Like, it cringes me every time I walk into my grocery store because they have some of the most terrible photography up there. I'm a stickler for quality. I'm a stickler for people looking and feeling their best. And I think for me, like, ultimately, if I'm honest, my passion isn't photography. My passion is people, and connecting with people is what I do. And photography is the tool that I use to make that happen. So, like I said, once upon a time, I was a relationship coach. Again, it was connecting with people. I would sit down with a couple who is considering getting married and talk to them about their entire lives, give them my best advice, give them my recommendation, but also encouragement, and tell them that it's possible. Because I remembered before I got married, how scared and unsure I was and just nervous about the idea, because all we see, like, marriages are like plane crashes. Like, you only hear about the ones that, like, when it comes like airlines, like, you only hear about the planes that don't land. You only hear about the planes that crash. Nobody reports, all right, there was a successful plane flight from New York to Los Angeles. Like, that's not news. So you don't hear about it. And so going into marriage, I heard so much about the negatives of relationships and marriage that, like, I was terrified. So for me, I was like, I want to be that beacon of light to encourage people to say, no, like, it's possible. And I think that passion for people and connecting with people and just encouraging them to do what they want to do has just transferred to a new avenue with photography, because it's more broad, obviously, because people can be passionate and have dreams to do a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, like, I think you could give somebody else my camera, my preset, and they still wouldn't be able to do exactly what I do. Because I think so much of it is about the interpersonal relationship, the interaction, and what I'm able to draw to people just on a relational level, that is really where I thrive in a lot of situations beyond just taking pictures.
So, Mike, we're going to talk a little bit about pricing your services appropriately. And in specifically to that, let's talk about the confidence you have to have in order to price your work, and knowing your value and being able to price it correctly. What do you tell up and coming entrepreneurs or other photographers out there? What kind of confidence you have to have in how you price correctly?
I think, and it's funny you ask this question, because I do feel like I've become like an advocate for pricing. And I do it on purpose because a couple different reasons. Well, first and foremost, I'll say for up and coming entrepreneurs, specifically photographers, because it's such a, I don't know what the word to describe it is, but like, it's an up and down market. Like, you can charge a lot, you can charge a little. It's really up to you. I think there is a process that you have to go through in order to, like, set yourself up for success when it comes to pricing yourself appropriately. I was not always charging what I charge now. I wasn't charging what I charged 2 months ago. And that's because I find myself constantly getting better. You have to start somewhere. Once upon a time, I shot for free. Once upon a time, I would, do gigs for trade, all that kind of stuff. It's a part of the process. You build your experience, you build your reputation, build a demand for what you do. I think when it comes to charging yourself appropriately, I think I got to a point where I realized that I was doing jobs and I would come home and feel like I had gotten taken advantage of. Because I knew that the value that I delivered was greater than the value that I received monetarily. And I think you have to constantly be in tune with yourself and what you do and the level in which you do it in order to be able to understand where you lie on that dichotomy. I I think for me, it got to a point where I realized that I had to charge more in order to just maintain some like balance in my life. I knew the key indicator, again, it's a simple process of like supply and demand. I was shooting 3, 4, 5 times a day, like legit 3 or 4 or 5 shoots. And at the time I was probably charging, I don't know, maybe like, let's say $500 for a photo shoot. So I would go and do 5 photo shoots, connect with 5 different people, which I loved, and I would be juiced by that. But at the same time, I would come home exhausted. So I do, let's say, just for, sake of conversation, I would do 5 shoots for $500. So I go 5 different places, drive 5 different spots, have 5 different galleries to edit, different studios to go to, fill in the blanks, all of the logistics that go into that. I had to do 5 separate sales calls, and I would make $2,500, which was great. But then when you flip to, all right, I have a high ticket client who has the capacity to pay me $2,500 for one session. So which do I want to do? Would I rather run around the city like a chicken with his head cut off for $2,500? Or let's just say, or would I rather work with one person for $2,000 for 4 hours, come home, and I still have the rest of the day to myself? And I think it's a scary thing to do, to price yourself out of clients, to put yourself in a position where people can't afford you. It feels bad, but it's also like, do I want to honor and respect myself or disrespect myself for the sake of other people and fitting into their budget? And I've heard people say, like things like, oh, you're not responsible for fitting into somebody's budget. If you deliver the value that you claim to deliver and somebody sees that value, they'll find the money. Like, nobody is coming to Apple and getting a discount. And Apple does not care. If you can't afford a MacBook, then you can't afford a MacBook Pro. Cool. You're going to find a way to get it, or you're going to take another option and build up until you can get whatever it is that you want. And I realized that I needed to be in that position in order to continue to grow and build, because I was at capacity and I wanted to make sure that I was still giving the level of service that I wanted. And it's just not easy to continue to go at that level. I started feeling myself fall apart, start throwing my back out. Like, there was just a lot of things that I realized that I have to slow down. And honestly, the only way to do that without just telling people no is to raise my price. And it's like, one of the best pieces of advice for pricing that I ever heard was, if you raise your prices too high, you're going to scare people off. But if you set your prices too low, you'll also scare people away. And when I heard that, it's just like, okay, who would I rather scare away? People with more money. And in all honesty, people who are easy to work with. In my experience, anytime I give somebody a discount, anytime I discount myself to fit somebody's budget, it becomes one of the more challenging projects that I take on. Whereas I could work for, let's say, a production company in New York that I've worked with hires me for quite a few gigs. They pay my day rate of $3,500. There's no questions. The check comes. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to chase anybody. I don't track anybody down. And they're easy to work with, really cool. Versus, I've worked with somebody who, when I was charging $500, that was making me jump through hoops to get that. And it's just like, I didn't want to struggle anymore. And I also wanted to value my time. And I also want those bigger opportunities. I think when I charged more, I experienced a different clientele.
And how do you go about getting that high value client? What do you do differently now that you didn't do before, when your prices were at another level or less than what they are now?
To be honest, I wish I could tell you that there's something else that I did, but it really was changing my price. Like okay. So if I were to come to you and say, I have 2 pens, one costs $200, the other costs $3. Which one do you want to use? They might look exactly the same, but you're going to grab the $300 pen. And I think I realized that my prices were too low. I was at an event with some big name people, and we were having conversations and talking, and it was like, oh, I need to book you. And in my mind, when they said that, I was like, man, if they go to my website right now, I would be embarrassed by what I'm charging, because I know that they would expect to pay more because of who they are. And that was the moment where I was like, I need to figure this out, because I want to be able to walk into a room like this and confidently say, yeah, go to my website. Let me know if you're interested in working. And so that was the first shift in my mind. And then I'll be honest, I had a company that reached out who at the time, I think maybe a session that they were asking for, I would have charged like $800 for. And we talked about the gig, talked about what they were expecting. And the client said, I don't know if she looked at my website, but she was like, we're looking to spend between $2,500 and $3,500 for this. And I said, $3,500 will work. And she wrote the check. I never looked back. And honestly, I've experienced that over and over again. And I've had other people who, and not just companies, I've had influencers who reached out for projects. And I just started asking, instead of just telling them my price, I said, what's your budget? And they're like, I don't want to be offensive, but we're looking at between $2,500 and $3,500. This is another person who said this. And after that, I was like, based on the work that I'm producing, this is what people expect to pay. This is what people are worried about offending me by telling me that they're willing to pay. So that became my new price. And from there, it was a matter of me having and I also heard something. I'm not sure if you heard of Ash Cash, but he has,
I listen to him quite a bit every morning at 8:00.
Yes. Ash Cash, I actually just overheard him in conversation at a conference. He was talking to somebody out in the lobby, and he was like, the success of an entrepreneur is solely based on their level of confidence. I could have gone to that brand and said, yeah, it'll be $1,000, and they would have happily paid it and moved on and said, hey, we got that guy. But I was confident enough to like talk to them, tell them my value, and demand what I felt like I was worth, or what they felt like I was worth. And I didn't cower away from that. I think there's some people right now who would have heard that and be like, oh, well, a session is only this much, and a client's going to take a lower price if you offer it to them. But there's money out there. I think it was just a level of exposure and understanding that like every client is not who you're working with right now. There's levels. And for me, I was just like, it was time for me to go to the next level, because I knew that I was creating work that even these bigger brands, after they work with me, they're still blown away. Where there's somebody who probably would have charged them $10,000 who would have done half a job as me, giving them half as many images. So why not me?
I haven't been to the website lately, but I'm going to have to check it out. And
yes, today's price.
It's not today's price. Look,
and it's so funny. People hit me up with that all the time, man. I need to send Fat Joe like, I don't know, some kind of gift, because it's like people understood it. Once he said it, people was like, like, you can set your price to what you want it to be. And I have the power to say no. I think John Acuff wrote a book called Quitter. And he talks about, like, in this context, he's talking about why it's important to have a job while you're trying to build yourself as an entrepreneur, because you need the power to say no. So like if you have a job and you're not dependent on getting every sale or booking every new client, you have the ability to say no. So you don't just get jerked around by the industry and just do whatever opportunity comes your way. Like you can be selective in order to send your career into the direction that you want it to be in. And so I have gotten comfortable with walking away from opportunities if I feel like they're not going to be mutually beneficial.
I've been there and I've done it. And
it's important
it's
to do.
Not always about the money. A lot of times it has to do with your own self-respect, for one, knowing what you deserve, and the relationship. Because if the person does not respect you, I don't care how much money they're willing to spend with me, I'd rather just walk away. And I've done it on several occasions, and I'm 100%. Good with it. And I know you've done it too. So
a lot of people in your industry.
Huh? Say that
A
again.
lot of people in your industry.
Yeah, real estate is like that, man. It really is. And I get it if you're a young up and coming agent and you're trying to figure out how am I going to pay my bills and I really got to get the
Figure it
sale.
out.
Sometimes you take a lot of bull, and luckily for me, I didn't have to be in that same situation
Yeah.
because I made sure, like I tell everybody, if you go into real estate, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, put yourself in a position financially so that you are able to work your destiny, your own destiny, not somebody else dictate your destiny.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to say no. That is
Right.
the best thing that you can ever have for your own self-respect is when something is something that you don't like and you don't want to deal with, it'd be okay to walk away. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk about that, the value of genuine relationships. Look, I'm going to tell you when I gave you your questionnaire for this, I was like, this dude is on it. He's got every target question that I want to ask already written out, the stuff that you know already. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to ask you this. Have you lost relationships since you've gone out on your own?
Are you talking about like client relationships or personal?
Personal client relationship, but mostly personal. I mean, have there been any close relationships that you have that have kind of like fallen off? Because I believe sometimes we as entrepreneurs, we change, and most times it's for the better. And not everybody gets it. So I'm just curious for you, have you lost any relationships since you've elevated in your career as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I'll say I have. This is a tough question to answer because I'll be honest. I wouldn't say I had a whole lot of really good quality friends even when I started. But I think I got to see how much more I was working to maintain friendships than other people were. I think once, because I was at a point when, before I got into entrepreneurship, I was working a job, but I was miserable. So I latched on to the friends that I had and I would do anything for them. And I would jump through hoops to like maintain those relationships. Once I got into my business and was focused and locked in, I noticed that life was a lot more quiet. And it took a while for people to like come back around. And then at that point, I had already kind of like built this new life in seclusion that I didn't really need all of the hangouts anymore. And so then it became a thing where it was like, I just kind of accepted it. And now like my clients are my friends. Like if there's something funny happening or if there's like a new TV show, like I find myself talking to my clients about it more so than anybody else. And it's crazy to say that. And it sounds so weird. But like you hear rappers talk about is lonely at the top and stuff like that. And by no means am I saying I'm at the top of anything. But I think it's just when you are focused on doing something for yourself, people who are used to you focusing on them have a tendency to disappear. And so, like you said, it's for the better because I feel like my life is better now than it was then. And again, people are, like, I think I'm making new friends, but the friends that I have now are just as busy and just as like on their hustle as me. So it's not so much like we're hanging out every weekend and just going and screwing around, but it's just like every so often we'll check in and go and have dinner and like compare ideas and share notes and encourage each other in our businesses. And to me, that's more valuable than, sitting around and watching Netflix. So yeah, I definitely would say relationships have changed, but I definitely have changed. But I think it really came to me respecting myself and valuing my time rather than just kind of giving it away freely as I did before.
And that's the thing, time. That's the thing. And I concur with you 100% that there are some relationships that have kind of gone by the wayside since I've decided to really focus on me and focus on what's important to me and getting this podcast up, and not having idle conversations on a daily basis about BS when I could actually be honing my craft. Yeah. Because sometimes those people in those relationships don't have the same passion that you do.
Yeah.
and they're not into the same things that you are. And you don't have to be alike, but like you said, people who are on their hustle and you can contribute to each other than just Netflix, and you can actually go to dinner and have a good time and help pump one another up and encourage each other. I think that is so important.
I just watched this documentary called The Weight of Gold, and it's about like Olympic medalists or Olympic athletes. I'll say that because there were some who didn't win on the documentary, but they talked about how, like, in order to be an Olympian, in order to be successful, in order to be a champion, you have to be locked in, focused. And they talked about the level of obsession, and I'll comfortably use that word because Michael Jordan is obsessed with basketball. Kobe was obsessed with basketball, like, to a degree that anything else is a distraction. Anything else is an obstacle between you and your goal. And so I think for me, I got to a point where I was just like, I'm focused on, when I wake up, I'm thinking about my business. And anything else is, to be honest, secondary, if not third, to my family and, just whatever else I got to do. And so, yeah, like, the best friends that I have now are people who I work with on some type of level where, like, we can talk about business. We can have a conversation, or we're going to work together in some kind of capacity. And I just think it's such more of a valuable use of my time. I will say it's hard to find photographer friends too. I've been struggling with that, trying to just like connect with other photographers who I feel like are not just coming to take from me, but also that, again, mutual beneficial relationships is my focus right now. I realized how bad I was at setting boundaries once I started my business, because for a time I realized that clients had taken advantage of me unintentionally, and not maliciously, but just because I gave so freely that I realized that I was taking care of myself last. And so at the point that I recognized that, I started doing the self-work to understand boundaries and how to kind of like protect my space a little bit better. And in doing that in my business, it also kind of transitioned to my personal life, to where I just don't put up with the same things anymore. And I also don't prioritize it as much as I once did. So
and that feels good.
It's been a good shift. Yeah. Yeah.
So before I let you go, I want to ask this.
Okay.
What is next for Mike D Shot Me? I know we've got Mike D Taught Me.
Yeah.
And last time you and I were talking, you were talking about the studio that you were building out and all of that. And I think I saw some glimpses of that. Tell me what's going on.
Oh, yeah. So the studio's going great. Vera Lofts, we've got 2 locations right now. Yeah, two locations for now. Maybe more in the future. What's next for me is growth in a different way. Like, again, I'm going to keep raising my prices until I only have to shoot like once a month. Like, that's honestly, or maybe just weddings, and just retainer clients. Because I want to still live life. Like, I enjoy photography, but I don't enjoy sitting in front of my computer all day. And the more that I shoot, the more I have to edit. So right now, I would say what's next for me is just automating a lot of my business, systematizing a lot of what I've got going on in order to kind of like build a business. Right now, it's still a very, very, very successful hobby in my eyes. Of course, I've got my EIN number and all that jazz, and I've got a CPA doing the taxes and blah, 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 blah. But like, I need to hire people. I need to bring on associate photographers who, if I'm in New York, I can still have somebody here that can cover a family shoot or a branding session for a retainer client without me having to worry about anything, and the process not getting stopped up or there not being any hiccups. And I know that the work is going to be done well. I do have the mentorship program. It's going good. I need to do more, in all honesty. I just brought on somebody. So I have different levels or different tiers in my mentorship program. And so there's somebody who came on at the highest tier. So we're working one-on-one, like she's coming along with me on shoots and assisting. having just like one-on-one coaching, working on editing, those kinds of things. So I'm excited to kind of like develop that a little bit more and bring more people on. I think once they see her growth and what happens, there's going to be others who will recognize like, yo, Mike D is really trying to put people in the game. And I've tried to do this at different scales before, but it's got to be the right people. And I feel like it's not as easy as it sounds to find talented, hardworking people who are also trustworthy and reliable. And I know that I have a standard for myself. But in order for somebody to come and work on my team and for me to like sign off on somebody, they're going to have that same mentality and that same work ethic and that same care for people. Again, because that's a core value of me, my personality, and also in my business. So, yeah, my hope is, like I said, to surround myself with other good people who I can work with, who I can kind of share in what I've got going on, and then kind of just grow and expand bigger clients, bigger projects. And yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
Well, my friend, you are well on your way. I'm proud of you. I love seeing what you're doing. Get those systems in place so that you can automate. And that's going to be your success right there. Keep surrounding yourself with good people, and you've got this. And I thank you again for taking the time to talk with us on Build Your Fort, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Most definitely. Until next time, talk to you soon.
All right.
You work hard all year long, so why not get more for your money at Experamax Midtown Atlanta? Looking for a MacBook Pro, iMac, or iPad? Don't pay full retail prices at the Apple Store when you can get the same quality products without the premium price. Experamax in Midtown Atlanta is your Apple headquarters, with everything from Apple desktops to laptops, watches, accessories, and more. Get the peace of mind you deserve and buy with confidence, knowing that all of Experamax certified pre-owned products are put through rigorous testing to make sure they deliver the reliability and dependability you demand. Experamax Midtown Atlanta makes it easy and affordable. Plus, you can trade in your old devices and get an offer right on the spot. So shop smarter and save money only at Experamax Midtown Atlanta.